Welcome back to the Tundra, episode 16, presented by Nicolet Law. Before we get started, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on all socials. On YouTube, do us a favor and subscribe to that YouTube channel, The Tundra GB, on IG and X, at The Tundra GB. That would really help us out a lot. Consider that your Christmas gift to us. And happy holidays to everyone. Now, as always, he's John Kuhn, Packers legend. I'm Matt Schneidman from The Athletic. But today, we are going to double as therapists, because this is a Packers therapy episode in a sense. After what we witnessed yesterday in Denver, we sit here on the night of Monday, December 15th. John, I don't know how to, wade into this, but the Packers' best player is out for the season, and he's going to miss probably the start of next season too. Give me the emotion, the feeling down on the field where you were yesterday at Mile High when Micah Parsons tore his ACL.
Well, first and foremost, it was everybody understood the weight of the injury and the weight of the player that was injured, and the amount of respect from both the Broncos and their fan base, along with obviously the Packers players that were on the field, was tremendous to me. It was something, it almost made the hair on the back of my neck stand up when Micah Parsons exited the field and walked his way to the locker room with a slight limp. The standing ovation that he got by the tunnel by the Broncos fans. It was a really cool sight to see. Now, it was terrible to see a player go down, any player go down. It's always awful to see any player go down. And it was a physical game yesterday with many players on both sides of the ball going down. But when Micah Parsons went down, there was definitely, it was like an anvil hit the Packers sideline, because they had already lost Christian Watson. They were losing the momentum in the ball game. You could feel it was like a tidal wave taking over everything. So when Micah Parsons went down, it was like the last final straw, holding any type of hope together for the Packers. And what was crazy about this is the Packers had many opportunities after Micah Parsons left the football game to crawl back in it, but because of the weight and the massive kind of emotional severity of Micah going down along with Christian Watson going down, they just could never recover from this.
What we like to do here on the Tundra is take you kind of inside the walls of whatever stadium these guys are in, maybe places the general public can't go. What'd you say?
Empower Field.
Mile High Stadium at Empower Field, presented by Walmart. I don't know what it's called these days. But, inside the locker room, obviously you could hear a pin drop. Rashon Gary was talking to a horde of reporters. He was kind of the first guy to have a scrum. And when he was asked the first question about Micah Parsons, he did not say a word for 12 seconds. He was visibly shaken. You could see him trying to process through his mind, all right, what is the appropriate response here? At the end of the day, look, I get these guys are football players. I get they make millions and millions of dollars to play a game, a violent one at that. But they're humans too. I mean, they see their best player go down. They still have to play. Josh Jacobs was talking about just how weird it was to have to still go out there and play after your best player is done for the season, regardless of what, the official test said today. They knew what the deal was. You saw it on the broadcast pop. So just Rashon Gary's kind of solemn words about, we got to pick it up together. He said he talked to Mike after the game and said, we're going to finish this strong for you. Carl Brooks told me, we still think we have everything out in front of us. So it was a, I don't want to say strange mix, but there was a mix of, the players acknowledging the gravity of the moment while also expressing confidence in the guys still in that locker room. And I get that. Nobody's going to say, oh, we're screwed. Because as Xavier McKinney said, I'm paraphrasing from Xavier McKinney, he said, if we said that, we'd be saying the other D linemen in our room aren't worth it. And they are. That's what he said. So it was an interesting contradiction. And we'll get into it much later about maybe what the Packers still can achieve this year. But it was one of those weird locker rooms where they're kind of grappling with, a bad injury. I almost said tragedy. It's obviously not a tragedy, but a big time injury, while also the reality that they have 3 games left and a playoff berth still realistically within reach.
And you can tell by those conversations why the Packers were never able to recover physically in the ball game, emotionally in the ball game, and why they let that thing slip away from themselves. And that's a big time learning lesson, right? Micah Parsons, you got to be able to compartmentalize in that moment and grieve afterwards. And the Packers, unfortunately, were unable to do that on the field properly, right? They did it somewhat. They still played, they still finished, but to be able to really focus on what the task was at hand and be able to execute. They were not able to do any a bit of that. I think after Micah Parsons left the game, the Packers scored maybe one more field goal, and the defense actually played pretty decent after Micah Parsons left the game. A couple fourth down stops, a third down stop that we'll talk about later that was reversed because of 12 men and an offside call with JJ Enagbare. But you got to be able to compartmentalize and win that football game, because guess what? Where they sit right now, everything is still out in front of them. But that one game that they had a chance to win, that could be the difference between a 2 seed, that could be a difference between a 6 seed. And for everybody out there saying, well, what's the matter? We don't have Micah Parsons. We're not winning the Super Bowl anyway. You don't know that. You don't know what the Packers can and cannot achieve. And you still got to give yourself the best chance to go far in the second season.
They still got players making a lot of money. And do I think their Super Bowl hopes are realistically still alive? No, but I've been wrong before, and I'm willing to be wrong again. We'll get into that later. Like I said, Matt LaFleur's main message after the game, I'm assuming both in the locker room and to us at the podium, was, we got a connected group here. I know how we're going to respond. He also said nobody's going to feel bad for us. Injuries, they're part of the NFL, but he also acknowledged the significance of the injury because of the player it happened to. He said, we know what Micah Parsons meant to this team. Let me put that in context a little bit. Micah Parsons was one of the 2 best defensive players in the NFL this season. He trailed only Myles Garrett, albeit by a large margin, in the NFL Defensive Player of the Year race through 14 weeks. He ranked tied for 3rd in the league in sacks through 15 weeks, including yesterday. 1st in total pressures, 1st in pressure percentage, according to NFL Pro. The guy is a stud, and that's all with the extra attention that other teams devoted to him consistently throughout the season. His speed, his grit, all the intangibles that you need. John, this guy lived up to the billing. The Packers got everything they bargained for when they made this blockbuster trade. Sorry, I'm on 4 hours of sleep from a Denver flight, and then some. When
nobody
they traded,
feels bad for you either.
I know, nobody feels bad for me. I'm going through the grind too. I just think it's still a little bit of a shock for the team. Obviously, different reasons as it was for us and also the fans. But I just sat there in the press box, like, in a little bit of shock. I still am. The Packers' best player, who is in the midst of yet another dominant season and en route to a 3rd first-team All-Pro nod in 5 seasons, gone just like that for the next 9 to 10 months. How, if you're in that locker room, do you grapple with that? Because you've been on teams that have experienced significant injuries like this before.
The next day comes and you go to practice. I mean, Matt LaFleur definitely needs to address it. He addressed it after the game. He talked with the players in that closed locker room before the media was allowed in there. But he needs to address it one more time when they come in there on Tuesday, which will actually be their Wednesday since they're playing on Saturday. And that'll be a time for him to say, hey, listen, we got a plan. We're going to go forward. We all need to buy in. It's all still out in front of us. And then they're going to go to work. And if anything else happens other than that, it's on Matt LaFleur to be able to put the reins on and make sure that these guys dial in and really hone in on their craft. Because right now, every player is going to have an opportunity to chip in a little bit more. And there were opportunities like that throughout my career, and there's opportunities like that through every player's career where somebody goes down. It might not even be at your position, but because maybe a position group is hurt, maybe there's some injuries on the offensive line that the running backs need to help a little bit more in protection. Maybe there's a couple of receivers going down, so you're going to have to run the ball a little bit more. Any reason why you could get a couple more plays, a couple more reps, and have a bigger impact, that gets exciting. So you need to focus on that. You need to focus on the excitement and the ability to chip in and kind of lift this boat with all tides on this football team. And if they can do that, if they can hone in on that, if they can focus on that and make that their energy, then they'll have success. If they don't, if they're consistently worried about not having Micah Parsons and what that means to them, they will go out and just a fizzle.
I do think there is some belief still in that locker room that they have guys who can get the job done. And I'm glad you mentioned kind of that collective that needs to rise up here, because that's what it's going to take. As Matt LaFleur said yesterday, it is the collective. It's not just Rashon Gary. It's not just Carl Brooks and Colby Wooden. It's the defensive backs who have to cover for longer now because the pass rush probably won't get home. It's Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker maybe getting home on a simulated pressure from the A-gap instead of Parsons doing that. It's on the offense to maybe win a shootout or two here down the stretch. It's on special teams to stop getting penalized and to maybe set up the offense with some more advantageous field position to make it easier on the defense to score. It's on everybody. But because it is the defensive line, and this is the name that most people are going to go to when they look at, okay, who is going to shoulder the brunt of the workload now, it's none other than number 52. And look, Jeff Hafley came to the defense of Rashon Gary last week, an adamant defense of his number 2 pass rusher, now back to number 1. He said, look, I know what the box scores say, and those box scores say Rashon Gary has 0 sacks in the last 7 games after having 7.5 in the first 7. On the season, as of last night, he ranked 41st in pressure percentage, I believe. So the box score isn't great for him. But Jeff Hafley said he's been great against the run. Teams are scheming in a way that they can neutralize Rashon Gary. He said he thinks Rashon's playing really well. What have you thought of number 52's season? And can he elevate his game to the level that they need it, given he's making $24 million a year, John?
He needs to. He's the number 1 contributor to fill in for the void of Micah Parsons. And I do agree with Jeff Hafley. In fact, he made a great play yesterday against the Broncos in the run, side swiping the kick out or the cut block and making a tackle right at the line of scrimmage on RJ Harvey. I mean, he has the ability to make big time plays. And we saw 7.5 sacks in the first 7 games. And that was a big contribution based on the fact that he was facing single teams the whole time. Well, now he's going to get a little more attention. He might get some chip blocks. And I think Jeff Hafley is going to have to create ways to get these guys and continue to get these guys one-on-ones. And that's by rushing Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker, maybe even a safety here or there, maybe Keyshawn Nixon on a corner blitz. But it's an opportunity, once again, it's an opportunity for Rashon Gary to come back strong here and kind of silence the critics after a couple quiet games. It's an opportunity for Lucas Van Ness to come back from an injury and be an impactful player. It's an opportunity for JJ Enagbare to go in there and continue his ascending play that he has had throughout the course of the season. It's an opportunity for Keyshawn Nixon to show that he can go out there on the outside and if challenged in man, rise up to the occasion. And it's a challenge to Jeff Hafley to really get this group to continue to play at a high level. I will say this. Last year, they finished the regular season 5th in yards, 6th in scoring, or maybe vice versa. They were a top 10 defense last year without Micah Parsons. The majority of that defense is still here right now. There's no reason why they cannot finish this season strong, albeit without that impactful amazing player in Micah Parsons.
So Rashon Gary actually told us in the locker room last night that he gathered up the entire defensive front in the locker room and basically issued a message. And I asked Carl Brooks what that message was. And he said, just stating the obvious, we got to step up. We just got to be on top of our shit. That's all. And Rashon Gary kind of issued not a challenge, but he said, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, watch what we do. We got 3 games left in the regular season. Watch what the pass rush is going to do. So he's confident in not only what he can do, but what that group can do. It's going to be a little harder because they also don't have their number 1 interior defensive lineman in Devontae Wyatt, but you're going to need more from Lucas Van Ness, who's working back from that foot injury. You're going to need more from 55 and Agbari. Could Brenton Cox come off IR? Is Baron Sorrell going to take on a bigger role? Can guys like Brinson and Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks generate enough pass rush to affect the quarterback even a fraction of what Micah Parsons was? It's kind of like the Tucker Kraft injury. We know nobody is going to replicate Tucker Kraft, but can they at least get close to that level so there's not a, precipitous drop off? We'll see. I don't think they can, but like I said, I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. Anything else? Go ahead.
I think honestly, the most important people that need to step up in this thing are Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love.
Okay.
They need to find a way on offense to kind of go the long road, possess the football, and score in the red zone. That was the biggest problem yesterday out there in Denver, 1 for 4 on red zone trips. They need to be more efficient going forward in order to ease the burden of the defense, because the defense has carried the lunch pail for the majority of this football season. The offense needs to now take on that weight and pick them up and really score some points, but possess the football as well.
I think they're capable of it, though. I think this offense, especially if Christian Watson only misses a game or or maybe not even, I think this offense can win a shootout. Jordan Love was awesome in the first half last night. You could even say he was, pretty good in the second half too. You look at the 2 interceptions in the box score, but the interception on the deep ball to Watson, he was hit while he threw it, even though Watson's dad said it was underthrown on Twitter. That's a discussion for another day. And then the second interception, yes, it was a little bit behind Dontavian Wicks, and that's on Jordan Love. But the coaches are going to grade that as a drop since it hit him in both hands. I'm not saying it's mainly on Wicks, but I think Jordan Love's still a great quarterback who can will this team in a shootout. And Aaron Rodgers just threw a touchdown to Marquez Valdes-Scantling on Monday Night Football. That's pretty funny.
Old school Packer football while we're doing the pod.
Funny. Oh, that's good. I just have the game on in the background here. But yeah, I agree with you, John. It's easy to look at Rashon Gary. It's easy to look at the other D linemen, but it really is the collective. It's everybody across the board, not only on the field, but off the field too. That's the all 11. It's cliche, but it's the all 11 mentality and then some that it takes when you lose a player of this magnitude. All right. Micah Parsons was not the only person on the field yesterday. There were a couple other notable injuries, and there was a game that actually happened. The Packers lost, but we're going to get into a couple nuts and bolts from that game before diving into some Bears preview, because after all, the Packers do have 3 games left before what we expect to be a playoff run. So stick with us. You're listening to The Tundra.
This episode of the Tundra podcast is brought to you by Nicolet Law. Now, you don't have to look far online to find insurance horror stories. Heck, they are everywhere. Insurance companies, they have a playbook designed to reduce the value of injury claims, if not deny them altogether. Every day, Wisconsinites, they should not be expected to know that playbook, but they still have to face it. They have to play against it. Nicolet Law, they excel in representing personal injury cases because they understand how insurance companies operate and they know that playbook inside and out. If you've been injured, Nicolet Law is ready to help level the playing field. Call 1-855-NICOLET or visit nicoletlaw.com.
Welcome back to the Tundra, episode 16, presented by Nicolet Law. All right, John, it's time for the Packers injury report. And it was a lengthy one, strictly coming out of yesterday's game. We spent the whole first segment talking about Micah Parsons and the fallout from that. I do want to add, Micah Parsons, in his statement, if you will, that he made on Twitter today, said, "I will rise again." And then he tweeted a picture of a lion, which is kind of his symbol. He has a Lion Heart Foundation. He kind of plays like a lion, Penn State Nittany Lion. And his caption, September. So maybe he comes back by then. Maybe it's only a 9-month thing. Although Micah's older brother, Terrence, did respond to one of my tweets and say he'll be off PUP by week 1 and he'll be playing by October. So we'll see what this return timetable is like. The other guys who got injured, Christian Watson, let's touch on him first. The reports out on him are that it's a shoulder injury. It was originally reported as a chest. He could miss Saturday, but I believe Jacob Westendorf was the first to report that he could still play on Saturday. And that's probably a good sign because he had to actually leave the stadium last night for imaging at a local hospital, did fly back with the team. That injury obviously occurred on the Patrick Surtain II interception when Jordan Love was hit, slightly underthrew Watson. Surtain made the leaping interception and fell down on Watson's left side, and Watson was kind of clutching his left shoulder. The guy can't catch a break. This one seems like he avoided disaster, but these aren't the same like soft tissue injuries that plagued him early in his career. This is another freak one, and they need Christian Watson. He has been one of the NFL's best receivers since he returned from that ACL rehab in week 8. So good news for the Packers that he seems to be relatively in the clear.
Yeah, to get Christian Watson back as soon as possible is number one important, right? He's the guy on the offense right now that can take the top off. He's the guy right now that can catch a slant and take it as far as it is to the goal line. And, without him, the offense really seemed to sputter throughout the second half. I mean, Matthew Golden has not really hit that deep ball stride that we've needed him to hit. And Jaden Reed just coming back now for the second week has not really been targeted deep yet either. So until they get that deep target threat, teams are going to be able to play them with with whatever type of measure that they want. They can drop a guy down in the box to try and firm up against Josh Jacobs in the run game, or they could continue to play shell and just keep everything short and underneath them.
The other injury, Zach Tom. I think Zach Tom told Spoon that he had no structural damage in his knee. And when he first went down, my first thought was, it's the re-injury of the oblique that he's kind of been dealing with all season. Zach Tom told Bill Huber this past week that it's still kind of something he's maintaining and monitoring as these weeks go on. I remember you saying when he first injured that oblique against the Lions, it's not something that goes away. It's just about pain tolerance and maintenance of it throughout the year. Matt LaFleur said both Zach Tom and Evan Williams, who also suffered a knee injury, are not long-term, could miss a couple weeks, might not. I asked Evan Williams as he was walking out of the locker room last night if he kind of had a sense for the severity of it. He said he still needed to get testing, but he said it felt better. If I remember correctly, I think he said a lot better than a grade 3 tear is what he called a knee injury he suffered in 2022 at Fresno State that caused him to miss 4 games. I should have been a better reporter and asked PCL, MCL, regardless. He said it felt a lot better than an injury that caused him to miss 4 games. So Watson, Tom, Evan Williams, Packers appear to avoid disaster with those guys like they were not able to avoid with Micah Parsons. And then Josh Wiley got hurt when Hufanga blew him up on that pitch to Josh Jacobs. He was ruled out early with a concussion. Are there any other injuries I'm missing? I know Quay Walker was being checked out, but he was never announced with anything. Nate Hobbs got banged up, but he was never announced with anything. So just a couple guys to watch on the practice report this week.
Yeah, we're going to have one of those classic Packers injury reports coming out here on Tuesday that probably has 15 to 20 guys listed on it. I would assume Josh Jacobs will still be on there, maintaining his knee contusion that he suffered all the way back against the New York Giants, or maybe even before that. It's one of those years where it's a battle of attrition, and you got to try and find a way to battle through. And Josh Jacobs, by the way, I thought played an absolutely phenomenal game
100%
on a pitch count. And I thought it was very telling that Matt LaFleur said, yeah, after the game, maybe I should have given him the ball a little bit more. Maybe we should have used him some more. So Josh Jacobs is one of those guys that really leads by example. And you kind of hope that some of these younger players, some of these other guys can feed off of that type of energy, that type of grit that he plays with, so that they can go out there, because to lose Micah Parsons is one thing, and then to lose Evan Williams, that's another one. Evan Williams was playing at an extremely high level on that defense. To lose both those guys and to be without potentially Christian Watson and Zach Tom, who's been our best offensive lineman throughout the entire season. That would be 2 very big blows on the offensive side as well. So the Packers got a lot. It's not just Micah Parsons. The Packers got a lot of holes to fill going forward in a very meaningful game here against Chicago.
It's been a lot of doom and gloom so far on this podcast. And granted, the Packers lost. They lost their best player for the season. But you mentioned it. Josh Jacobs doesn't practice on Wednesday and Thursday, does so in a limited capacity. And then if you were to not know that, and then to watch that catch he made for, I believe it was a 14-yard touchdown, and then the cut he made before his 40-yard touchdown run, this guy's unbelievable. He's not going to break off some of the long runs that guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and other running backs are, Bijan Robinson. He's not going to be as fast as those guys. He's just a workhorse feature back that is going to get the job done. Josh Jacobs has been in the NFL for 7 years. That was his 2nd career touchdown catch, which is crazy. I believe his first came against the Texans last year in that game where McManus hit the walk-off. And then his 40-yard touchdown run was his longest run of the season by 11 yards. 29 yards he had on a run on Thanksgiving in Detroit.
Yeah, just a few weeks ago. I
really
think 40-yard touchdown
by
might
Josh
be
Jacobs.
I think the 40-yard touchdown might be his longest touchdown as a Packer, if I'm recalling it correctly. I mean, he's a phenomenal back. He really is. And I think he has even more potential to break longer runs than just 40 yards. It's tough for him though, because the majority of his runs, he gets hit at the line of scrimmage. That happened to be one where the gate just popped wide open and the offensive line did a tremendous job. The receivers were blocking downfield. So that's when you give him a hole like that. That's the type of run that you can expect. When he's getting 4, 5, 6 yards, he's doing the majority of the work himself.
Yeah, he's just a guy that's going to get yards after contact. He's going to turn those 0 1-yard gains into 3 4-yard gains to try and keep you ahead of the sticks. He's just a warrior. There's a reason he wears the C on his chest. And I know his contract is one that could be gotten out of after 2 years. Packers can't do that. They got to keep him here for a while.
What are you talking about? That is crazy.
I'm talking about just the guy he is. We know the shelf life of running backs. We know the miles he puts on his body. I'm just looking ahead to try and spin it forward. His contract is set up where they can get out of it after 2 years, but they're obviously not going to do that. I'm saying they got to keep him here for as long as they possibly can because he's showing no signs of wearing down, and he's a guy that you need to look beyond the box score for what he means to this team. Is all I'm trying to say.
Okay. Good saying.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. I know you had some thoughts on a couple of the coaching decisions made by Matt LaFleur, John Kuhn, namely the 12 men on the field, or not 12 men on the field, the offsides technically that Kingsley and Agberry was called for, and then the decision to challenge, I believe it was the deep ball to Courtland Sutton when he pretty clearly got both feet in bounds and had possession.
It's just that was not just the offense, not just the defense kind of having that emotional, oh my God, we don't have Micah Parsons anymore. We don't have Christian Watson anymore. I felt like that was a moment that the sideline and even the coaching staff and Matt LaFleur had oh my gosh, we don't have these guys. We got to try and, sneak away to get out of this series. That was a 4th down conversion there by the Denver Broncos that passed to Courtland Sutton. Big time play in the game. And Matt LaFleur was just taking a shot in the dark. Let's see if this thing works. And it turns out they ended up just losing a timeout because of it. And then
they only had 2 at the time. That got them down to 1.
And a little bit later, the exact same drive. And this is what I mean by the momentum. It already felt like the momentum was shifting, but now the momentum had clearly gone the Denver Broncos way. And Matt LaFleur trying to break it any way that he can, both times unsuccessfully. This time with the challenge, which turned out to be what looked like a clear and evident catch on the football field. I know when he fell to the ground, the ball did wiggle, but he definitely got 2 feet in bounds and potentially made a football move before he fell out of bounds. And then the 12 men on the field, that's a simple case of just trying to steal 5 yards from the Denver Broncos because they shifted late, or because they ran personnel in late at the in the time clock. Mm-hmm. The refs stood at the line of scrimmage, giving the Packers an opportunity to try and sub players. When he walked away from the center, that's when Matt LaFleur told the coaches, get somebody in there. So J.J. Enagbare was trying to run in there to force the Broncos to use their last timeout or force them into a delay of game situation. Unfortunately, neither of those happened, and it happened on a 3rd down that the Broncos were unsuccessful in. It would have been their only red zone stop of the day, the Green Bay Packers defense, and it was nullified because of that play to try and, for no better words, trick them into using a timeout or trick them or fool them into getting a delay of game. And it did not work. And I felt like that was the moment that the game not only got away from the players on the field, but Matt LaFleur himself.
Was it not 2nd down?
No, it was 3rd down.
I thought it was going to be 3rd down, and then the offsides gave them a 1st down. You're saying it was going to be 4th down?
Yeah, I don't know. You got to check the stats.
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Fill some space here.
I have no space to fill.
Okay, excellent. Look, we talked earlier about how it's not only the front that needs to pick up the slack because Parsons is out. Arguably, more onus lies on the back end, who is most likely going to have to cover for longer. They've had the luxury of not having to cover for as long with all these quick pressures Micah gets, with all this pressure that he puts on opposing quarterbacks to play off schedule and get the ball out quick. Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine had a rough game yesterday. I think they've been solid for the majority of this season. So I want to preface what I'm about to say with that. And I don't necessarily think it was a matter of them just totally screwing up. Nixon got beat on the kind of out and up by Sutton. He just got beat. But a lot of these plays, that 4th down, one where Valentine slipped, it's just the Packers being beat by great wide receivers and great quarterback play. And I know on this podcast, you've gotten on me at times for wanting to delegate blame, when realistically, sometimes the answer is just the other guys get paid to make great plays too.
Yeah.
I've learned. I've learned from you, John.
I'm glad you recognized that. Bo Nix played out of his damn mind.
Out of his mind.
That guy, listen, we saw the joint practices. And Matt, we should not be surprised that before the game there was a scuffle. There was a couple scuffles when we were out there for joint practices last year. These are two teams that are uncommon opponents that are very common with one another because they've now played each other or faced each other 3 times in 3 years. They don't like each other, right? And Bo Nix did it last year as a rookie to this Packers defense, kind of worked him in that practice, and he did it once again yesterday. So whatever it is that Sean Payton sees out of this Packers defense and whatever it is that he tells Bo Nix, it works for Bo Nix because that was his best game this year as a quarterback, maybe his best game of his career. And he dropped that ball in a bucket twice to Sutton, not just for the touchdown, but for that 4th down conversion. He also threw that one in the tight window with double coverage around the goal line. Do you remember who that was to? Was that the
Lil Jordan Humphrey, I believe.
Lil Jordan Humphrey.
The touchdown, the kind of the low and away one where Quay and Valentine were right there. Yeah,
that's a ball that you say no from the sideline, and they catch it, and you say, "Oh, okay, yes, great." So, I mean, Bo Nix was out of his mind. The receivers were out of their mind. The Packers defense actually played the run very, very well, but unfortunately, it was Bo Nix in the pass game that actually worked them. By the way, I did fact check; it was 3rd and 3
when
they got called for the offsides.
You were correct. So I also did fact check that. That's 1 on the scoreboard for John Kuhn. Adam Gracia, our fantastic producer. Please mark that down as John is right and Matt is wrong. Hardly the first time that's happened. All right. We got another big game coming up this week. Saturday night in Chicago. We're going to dive into a bunch of preview for that game and ask the question. And we would love for all you listeners and viewers to comment your thoughts on this. Even with the loss of Micah Parsons, can the Packers still make a run? Is everything truly still out in front of them? We'll tackle that and a bunch more right after this. You're listening to The Tundra. Welcome back to The Tundra, episode 16. This segment is brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Hey, sports bettors. Whether you're new to the game or can knock out 16-leg parlays with the best of them, the premier sportsbook you want is smack dab in the heart of Milwaukee. It's the Potawatomi Sportsbook. John and I have been down there for different business ventures. It's fantastic. It's the closest thing to a Vegas casino / sportsbook in the Midwest. I know, John, you got a bunch of food items there that I want to hear about. Not only are there over 90 sports betting kiosks for you to dabble at, that was impressive the way I did that with my Invisalign is. There's all-star dining, first-class drinks, a giant video wall, why are you laughing, and more. It's nothing short of awesome. Potawatomi Sportsbook, bet above the rest. Okay.
Yeah, John, I'll get to the Invisalign and the mustache in a minute, but
please talk about the culinary offerings of Potawatomi.
I'm going to start with, I was just down there. I was just down at Potawatomi last week and for the Heart of Canal celebration where they give away over $600,000 to children's organizations around the holidays here in Milwaukee. And boy, it never surprises me when I go down there, or it never ceases to surprise me and amaze me when you go into that studio and do a podcast or do a show from there and you look over your shoulder at the sports book down below you. It is a panoramic screen that's over 100 feet long. It is amazing. It is the biggest screen you'll ever watch any sporting event on. And honestly, Matt, I've gone down there and watched baseball games and didn't even gamble. I just went down there, watched the games, ate some food, drank some drinks, and did it at a very reasonable price.
So, John, I would do my radio show from there last year. Rest in peace to that radio show. And
your phone that keeps vibrating. Why don't you turn that thing off? Turn that damn thing off.
I need to have news at all moments. I'll just put it on the rug instead of my desk. I apologize.
Oh, you're the Adam Schefter of the Tundra podcast.
I don't know what's going to happen. What I was going to say, speaking highly of our sponsor before you rudely interrupted me, I was going to say when I used to do my show there, I remember the Yankees played in a playoff game right after, and I didn't want to drive 2 hours home. So I just sat atop that upper level of the sports book, watched on the big screen. It's a fantastic venue for food. The staff is awesome. They would always bring Doug Russell and I some great food. You got to go to Potawatomi if you have the chance. Currently at Potawatomi, the Green Bay Packers are 1.5-point favorites against the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field on Saturday night. Fox A-Team on the call. It's a massive game, John. Despite everything we just said about the Packers and how they're affected by these injuries and Micah Parsons, Packers win. They're right back in first place in the NFC North. They're kind of alternating 2nd seed, 7th seed with the Bears these last couple weeks. We don't need to get into all the statistical ranks of the Bears because we did that for you.
And they've only gotten better.
2 weeks ago, they just whooped up on the Browns 31-3. Caleb Williams still playing well. It's going to be another dogfight, I think. And it's going to be harder for the Packers without Micah. It's probably going to be harder given that it's at Soldier Field. But we talk about everything being right in front of the Packers. They can get right back atop the division, control their own destiny, which they do right now, to win the NFC North and host a playoff game. And that starts with a win on Saturday at Soldier Field.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are looking at that line right now saying, how are the Packers favored at Chicago? And it's almost like people only watched the Denver Bronco game and saw Micah Parsons get injured. And it's like the only thing they read from all the sports writers are about Micah Parsons getting injured. But the Green Bay Packers actually played a football game and scored on their first 5 possessions against if not the one of the best defenses in all of the NFL. And it was not until that interception that happened on that pass to Christian Watson that the tide seemed to turn. And even after Micah Parsons went down, the defense did stand up firm, had a couple 4th down stops, gave the Packers offense 2 different opportunities at the end of that football game to tie it. So you saw a team, even in defeat, even losing some of their star players, compete with the Denver Broncos all the way for 60 minutes. And a lot of people don't feel like the game went that way. I watched the film for a second time today, and I was impressed by the way those guys went in there and performed without Micah Parsons to get those stops. And I was impressed with the way that the offense started that football game. Good Lord, Jordan Love was on fire. I thought we were going to have a surefire shootout in that thing until we got to the second half. Packers need to dial in to what they do when they're hot. And they got to find a way to play that way for 60 minutes. This has been something that's kind of creeped in this year, Matt. They've played bad first halves, great second halves, great first halves, bad second halves. And they haven't really put together 60 minutes all that often. They did it against the Lions, they did it against the Vikings, and they did it against the Bears somewhat, even though the Bears offense got after them a little bit in the second half of the first game. They need to put 60 minutes of really good. Doesn't need to be perfect all the time because what, Matt? The other team gets paid too.
Yep.
But it needs to be really good football. They need to play their best for 60 minutes. If they do that, they can win any one of these 3 games down the stretch or all of them.
At Chicago, home against Baltimore on the following Saturday, so regular week of rest. And then a trip to Minnesota for the season finale. Vikings picked up a good win to all but knock the Cowboys out of playoff contention. The Vikings are eliminated themselves. But John, when we talk about what's ahead of the Packers and whether they can still go on a run, like you said, I don't look at the defense and say, okay, without Micah Parsons, this defense can still play at an elite level. I think the best chance for the Packers to still go on a run and have everything out ahead of them, out in front of them, like guys were saying yesterday, it rests on the offense's shoulders. We talked about it earlier. A lot now rests on Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur, perhaps more even than on Rashon Gary, Colby Wood, and guys like that. Jordan Love has proven capable of winning shootouts. He's proven capable of putting the Packers on his back, on his right arm, if you will. Especially if Christian Watson misses no games or even one, you got your full stable back. You got Reed, Wicks, Golden made a couple plays yesterday. You got Watson, you got Dobbs, Musgrave made a couple plays. Josh Jacobs is great in the passing game and the run game. This offense can make plays. This offense is capable of going into the 30s. And like we said, I don't want to totally poo-poo on this defense. Micah Parsons, obviously the team's best player. Losing him is a crushing blow. And I do think, like I said, the realistic Super Bowl hopes are over, but they still got guys like Xavier McKinney, Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker, Rashon Gary, even though some people don't think he plays great. Nixon and Valentine are playing better than they did yesterday. Guys on the D-line have been making plays. They've been stout against the run for the majority of the season. There is no reason the Packers can't not only make the playoffs, but maybe win a game or two. I don't think they can win the Super Bowl. Maybe I'll be wrong.
Or you don't think they will?
I don't think they
will you at least acknowledge that they can?
Well, sure, it's possible. I think they can.
Okay.
But the season's certainly not over. Everything's out in front of them technically, but realistically, I don't think so. Do you don't think they? What about you? Do you think they?
Let me throw something out for you. Let me throw something out for you real quick. You mentioned all those names. The most important one, and the one that actually has a track record, Matt LaFleur. Right? Matt LaFleur came in here. He wanted to run the outside zone exclusively and run all the play actions off the outside zone. Found out very quickly, the outside zone isn't what we do with this offensive line. This offensive line wants to run gap scheme. I mean, this outside zone's still in it, but it's not the outside zone exclusive offense that he came in here to run. He adjusted and he made an offense work with that. Remember when he lost Jordan Love last year? He was able to rally the troops and win football games with Malik Willis playing at the quarterback position. And then, you start to look about what they did with the offensive line either earlier this year, right? When Elton Jenkins goes down, they got to move some pieces around. They've been moving pieces around all the time. He's been rallying the troops when he's had to. Now I must ask you a question, that's going to be with the injury to Zach Tom. If he can't play this week, does Jordan Morgan play right tackle, or do they shuffle the deck even more on that offensive line?
What would shuffling the deck include?
I don't know because from what I've heard from the beat writers, Jordan Morgan's best position is what?
Left tackle.
Yeah. So
are you saying shuffling
and
the deck?
Rashon Walker go to the right?
Oh, whoa. That is a little too much shuffling the deck, but no, I don't think they can't do that.
Can't they? I mean, they can't. They can't.
They can, but
Anthony Belton went into right guard after practicing it for a week, and he's been great at it.
Do you think they would shake it up that much this late in the season? I mean, I don't know this for certain. I don't know. Rashid Walker's taken a snap at anywhere but left tackle since he got here.
I don't think so either. But can Jordan Morgan play any position other than left tackle?
But why wouldn't they just put Darian Kennard at right tackle?
I don't know. You got a first-round pick. You got a guy that you brought in at the end of training camp.
I get that, but at this point, it's like, okay, he just got beat out by a rookie for right guard. Maybe we reset for him, have him be that 6th or 7th guy off the bench, and then give him the best shot to win left tackle next year. I don't think you still try. So he
gets no more shot. He doesn't get a shot at right tackle, is what you're saying.
I think his next shot is coming at left tackle. That's what I think. And it will be in OTAs and training camp next year. I don't think at this point in the season they say, we got to get a first-round pick in. I think that comes next summer.
Okay.
But I might be wrong. Do you think they should try? Are you implying that you think they should try Jordan Morgan at right tackle?
I would not be shocked if Jordan Morgan ends up playing right tackle this week at practice and is getting reps and is getting ready to go out there.
Do you know something that we don't know, John Kuhn? Or is this an educated guess?
No, this is just me speculating based off of watching Matt LaFleur, watching Adam Stenavich move pieces around when they've had to in the past.
Okay.
Hey, you must admit, Zach Tom went down at a pretty strange. It was late in the first half, and we had the halftime. Then they come out in the second. The protection in the second half for Jordan Love was not there. He was under
siege,
and he has not had great protection this year, but it did not look like that. And for the protection they had in the first half to the second half, there was a clear change. So something needs to be done so that teams don't continue to do that to Jordan Love when he drops back and pass. Because if it is going to be like we believe, Jordan Love in this offense having to score some points, 27, 30 points in these football games to take the burden off the defense, to let them play a little bit more one-dimensional, then he's going to have to be protected.
He will. They've done some nice things protecting him of late, and Jordan Love, we know, is good at sack avoidance inside and outside the pocket and is good under pressure, but not quite under siege like he was at times last night. They got to hold up a little more. Okay, let's get into some score predictions for Saturday night's game. As we said, at Potawatomi, the Packers are 1.5-point favorites. John, I think the Packers win this game. I just think I'm a believer in the narrative and the storyline, and I kind of use that sometimes to make my predictions. I got a little ahead of my skis last time when I said I wouldn't be surprised if Matt LaFleur went up to the podium and said, Ben Johnson's not beaten me twice this year. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the week he maybe takes a shot and walks to that podium in the depths of Soldier Field and says, man, I really enjoyed beating Ben Johnson twice this year. That would be just a classic moment. I'm trying to manifest it because it would be a great story. But I also do think the Packers win this game. I'm going to go 28. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to go 27. We're going to stick with the 27. Micah Parsons is going to be 27 years old when he returns. I'm going to go 27-21 Packers, similar to not last week, 2 weeks ago here at Lambeau Field. I think the Packers get back atop the NFC North and show people maybe, just maybe, they can go on a little bit of a run here without their best player.
It's so hard to make the prediction today. Is Zach Tom going to play? Is Evan Williams going to play? Mm-hmm. Is Christian Watson going to play? If those three play, I do believe the Packers will rise to the occasion and win this football game. If two or even one of them plays, I think it'll be really tough. If none of them play, I think it's going to be a big burden on this team. I think the Chicago Bears really need this game as a franchise, as an organization, as Ben Johnson and them are sitting there. They are targeting this game and circling this game as the one they have to get. Keep this in mind. They got to play the 49ers and the Lions yet after they play the Green Bay Packers. There is nothing set in stone for that. They're going to want to try and get this one right here on Saturday night on a short week at home. I think all of those factors are going to be a little bit too tough for Green Bay. I'm going to pick Chicago 26, the Packers 24.
Okay, see, I made my Packers win prediction even if all three of those guys don't play. I think they still win if all three of those guys, Williams, Tom, and Watson, don't play. We'll see what happens. I can't wait to get down to Soldier Field, the worst press box in the league in terms of a viewing standpoint, the worst press box in the league in terms of a food standpoint, but it's within driving distance and I don't have to get on a plane. Why are you smiling? Because I'm trapped. Everybody in the league would say that. It's not just me.
Because you're right.
I know
it's
I am.
Awful.
It's terrible.
It's the one press box I don't even try to get a meal at, right? The rest of them I at least try to get a meal. It's not even
worth it.
No.
Okay, well, we appreciate everybody for listening. We're going to give you a happy holidays early, and maybe the Packers get a win for all you fans out there. Once again, please give us a subscription on YouTube. Subscribe at the Tundra GB, on IG, X, the Tundra GB, on all socials. It would mean a lot to us as this holiday season comes around. We appreciate everyone riding with us during this first season of this show, and we'll catch you next week.